All right, good evening and welcome to the 2D podcast, a football podcast. I love the smile on your face, Eric, because I've got a big toothy grin on my face from ear to ear. If you're catching us via the podcast, remember, we stream live when Tuesday nights, usually right around 9 o'clock. Running a little late today. We'll see how long it lasts. I don't even know. We'll see. We'll see what we've got. It's all in the hands of a wonderful company called Spectrum. I can't wait to see how it works this time and whether or not they
Giving them free advertising, Petro.
Yeah. No Spectrum sponsorships coming anytime soon.
Yeah, no, don't expect that. I wouldn't accept it. I would quit. If you want it, you take it. I quit. We got a lot to get to, though, today. Of course, we probably brought you back a company that actually does what they say, GAN Asphalt and Concrete, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Odell Beckham Jr. signs with the Baltimore Ravens. Is this the right move? What does it mean for Lamar Jackson? Is it a sign? Is it just about the money with Odell? The Lions are meeting with Hendon Hooker. What does this mean for Jared Goff? Is his time coming to an end? Are the Lions looking to upgrade at quarterback the same way the Rams did when Jared Goff was there? The Cardinals are getting a lot of interest with that third overall pick. Who needs that spot the most? What should teams be targeting to get there? And Sean Payton has been recently talking about the narrative on Russell Wilson, saying he's not done. That's not the reality. It's about what happened before. Does this mean that Russell Wilson and Sean Payton is going to be a marriage made in heaven? We talk about it right now here on the 2D podcast.
You're listening to the 2 Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. 2 Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. 2 Deep is proudly brought to you by GAN Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at ganasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. GAN Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. GAN Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out ganasphalt.com for more info. Now, here are the hosts of the 2 Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And good evening and welcome. You catch to the podcast. We stream live, as Jeff, this is a cocktail sound like right there. We stream live on Tuesdays, about 9 o'clock Central Time, if you want to be a part of the equation. Let's dive right into it, Eric. Let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr. He's a Baltimore Raven. We finally have his landing spot. Is this the right landing spot for Odell Beckham Jr.?
I mean, for him and his agent, yeah. I mean, holy buckets, that contract is big. I knew, Petro, you knew, like there are about a dozen teams had him offered basically anything from $5 to $7 million. That, of course, the Ravens come up over the top of that. I heard the Jets were sort of in that $7 to $8 million range, and that was, if you're the Ravens, you're trying to get them in the building. When you had a plethora of offers that were all kind of in the same range, really no incentive for him to sign. Ravens kind of come up over the top. They get him in the building. Hopefully, this will persuade Lamar Jackson to come back. That's probably one of the thoughts for the Ravens. So it's a great deal for Beckham. Absolutely great deal. For the Ravens, it seems like an overpay to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And this is from a team that's supposed to be analytically driven. Jeff, how does, when everybody else is offered in the $5, $6, $7, $8 million range, how does $15 million make sense from a team that supposedly is all about the math?
It's called putting the carrot before the horse, right? Like, I think that's what they needed, to put something on the table that made it look as if they were addressing the receiver position. and I'm glad to see your head got put back together after the explosion that we didn't see in real time.
Unfortunately, for those out there,
I'm
Jeff
sure
and
you're.
Eric see it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's more talk about your response than Eric's hair tonight for the first time ever.
I've
Eric's
stolen
in
the
second
spotlight.
place. But yeah, I think we all know what Odell Beckham is at this stage. The scary part for this is just that they're going to treat him like he's a number one receiver. They're paying him like he's a number one receiver, and he's not that anymore. This is the perfect example of a guy who feels as if he can still do more than what he actually can do, and he'll get paid to go in there. And I don't see it being a very good situation for him. Now we'll talk about Lamar Jackson in a second here, but he knows Todd Monken, which helps the Ravens offensive coordinator. But you're also talking about a guy who's coming off an ACL, his second ACL, who hasn't been a top elite receiver in this league in a long time, who has a history of injuries, who's over 30. And it just feels as if, as you said, Soren, this is a very un-Raven-like move. And when you start doing these kind of moves as a franchise, it usually ends up being a lot worse than just what you're paying him. I think there's a residual effect here that's going to hurt this team in the long run.
Eric, you've got the doctorate in mathematics. Tell me any way that the math works on this one.
I mean, they're probably, using void years to back that thing up like 5 or 6 years. And then they're saying if Lamar, they use that money to sign Lamar, great. Like nothing else matters if you can get Lamar into the building. And if they can't, then they'll roll over that extra money, into future years and pay back what they loaned, got in a loan this year by using the void years. Like, to me, that's how it goes. He's not worth that much money, though. I mean, geez, like this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, and that's what I don't get. I mean, a lot of people are speculating, well, this is done to make Lamar Jackson happy. Well, are you there to win football games? Are you there to, I don't understand that this is the most un-Raven-like thing I've seen. It just, I do.
I'm close.
We've somebody said, well, aren't they using voidable years? I mean, yes. I mean, it's a 1-year deal. I mean, that's what it is. It's going to be a 1-year deal. $15 million he's gonna could get up to $18 million. I don't see any scenario where he gets to that, although I haven't seen yet, and maybe they came out today, but I hadn't seen what the incentives are that he's got to hit to gain the $3 million. But $15 million. I mean, Eric was talking about, we were here, and there were teams that had 1 year, $5 million on the table, right? And one maybe plus some incentives there. It just is mind-boggling that a franchise that is heralded so often for doing the right things can be doing this. It's unreal. And what does Lamar Jackson do with him, Jeff? Like let's say Lamar Jackson's back. What do we think we're going to get here? We're going to get 90 catches for 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. Like what does Lamar Jackson get from Odell Beckham Jr.?
I don't see that happening. And what you get is what you got earlier today when he was on Instagram taking screenshots of his conversation with Odell and having dinner with him in Miami the other night and going out into the club and Fountain Blue Hotel and kicking it and having fun with him. I think it's a way of moving this conversation forward. I mean, look, the last couple of years, the Ravens have been in purgatory trying to figure out how to make this work with Lamar Jackson. And maybe this is the way to push it forward, to say, look, here's somebody you like. Here's an example of what we're willing to do with you. We've changed the offensive coordinator now. You've gotten you a receiver you like and who's got a reputation. The next step now is for you to be sensible and come forward. They want Lamar Jackson to play football for them. For everything else Lamar Jackson has been saying about being done with the Ravens and moving on, he's got to understand that they have almost all the leverage in the situation. And so if he wants to play football next year and he wants to be able to move forward and look at opportunities to make money, that's going to happen in Baltimore. 95% chance it happens in Baltimore. And so now it's about, can you be comfortable with the situation? But no, I don't think that he fits what Lamar Jackson wants to do, because Lamar Jackson's never used a receiver like this in any kind of capacity. They've had good receivers in Baltimore. They've had serviceable receivers, and none of those guys have put up big numbers. I don't see it happening with Odell Beckham.
The Ravens franchise has never had a Pro Bowl receiver.
But they've had good receivers.
Yeah, they've had Pro Bowl. Like Derek
Steve
Mason
Smith
was on the team, but they've never sent a receiver to the Pro Bowl.
Anquan Bolden, when he was there, didn't?
No.
Well, Eric, I want to ask you this because you've met with these teams. Jeff, you chime in too because I know you go to their camp and you've been around and have contacts. And there's a chance leadership is actually on the hot seat.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this
I
is
mean, like, because this is the thing,
yeah.
man. Like, and there was a really interesting discussion because Michael Lombardi was giving PFF a lot of crap for saying, like, they Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the draft, but Anthony Richardson has the highest upside. We go, the Panthers go with Richardson. And like Michael Lombardi was like, this is so stupid. Like, well, how can you think this way? And it's like, being average in the NFL is not a place to be. Like, they're like, you can't, and the Ravens aren't average, but over the last like 3-4 years, they've been living off of that 14-2 2019 season. Like, they're kind of flatlining in that middle area of like above average, right? And I think people don't get this. Like, that's not like Rick Spielman got fired after being in that sort of tranche. Guys like that, you're a hop, skip, and a jump away from being crap in that position, right? So I think people look at the Ravens and say, yeah, you do a lot of smart stuff. You've won one playoff game since 2015. Like, so I do think that there's a little bit of there's more of a hot seat than people believe, for sure. And this is a move that is out of somewhat of desperation.
Yeah, I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures. That's what this is, Jeff. Is that where we land?
Yeah, look, we don't live in Baltimore, but I can tell you that, the vibes that I've gotten from being around there over the last couple of years is that Lamar Jackson certainly has a lot of fans within that town, and a lot of people who feel like he should be paid a certain amount of money, like he is the whole team. And people have overlooked the fact this team is, to Eric's point, has always been a defensive first team. And the real conundrum here is that people are starting to look at this like, well, he's the reason they're winning. If they don't have Lamar, what are they going to do? They've won championship without that kind of quarterback. Without an MVP quarterback playing for me. They did it twice. And the real problem here is that they don't want to lose what really makes them competitive, which is their defense. And the minute you start paying Lamar Jackson that kind of money, and you start having to pay Odell Beckham Jr. that kind of money, I guarantee you Eric DeCosta is sitting there thinking, how am I going to make sure I'm taking care of the guys that really make this thing go? And so that's the real decision they have to make here is like, can they get Lamar Jackson to buy into the fact that you need all these other guys on the other side of the football to be who you are?
They tried to compete with the Eagles for Darius Slay to that point. Like they pay the defensive players they want to pay. Roquan, Calais Campbell when he came back. Well, that was a really relatively easy deal, but like they pay the guy, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. They pay the guys that they want to pay.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think listen, where was the one about this one, Tommy, the Ravens need to get Ozzie Newsome back in charge. I don't know that things have been a dumpster fire, but this is, they're finding themselves at that crossroads where you got to pay the quarterback, and they've been through it. Somebody else had it, like, hey, when they won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco on the rookie contract, and then they had to pay him, and they backed up the bus, and they know what they're against. They want to pay him the market value, but they're over a barrel. And this is, to me, why, like, I like, what would the bargain be on a trade, or is a trade not possible? Like, do we think ownership, Jeff, has just said, listen, you're going to make it work. It's our only chance. If he's going to get traded, it's going to be after this when I hire a new GM.
I'm of the belief that Lamar Jackson has 1 year left with the Baltimore Ravens. No matter how this plays out, it's like, I think he's going to be playing there next year because the money he's going to make is more money than he's made in his previous 4 NFL seasons. That's real money. That's a real change in lifestyle. But yeah, beyond this point, it doesn't make sense for them to continue this pursuit of, let's make sure we take care of him because he's been so great. At some point, there is, I've said it before, I guess probably Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford, the list goes on and on. Like, every quarterback who's been a face with a franchise quarterback within the last 5 years has moved on to someplace else. It can happen with Lamar Jackson, and they can find a way to survive without him.
Erica, I want to bring this one up because it says, FYI, the Ravens currently have $67 million in cap room next year and $146 million in 2025. It's an overpriced peace offering. Ravens still have tremendous cap flexibility and hold the cards. $67 million next year. You what? And I can bring that up and look at it, but that doesn't have the $50 million that Lamar Jackson wants. That cuts it to 17, and I'm going to bring up their cap number. I'm willing to bet you that I'm going to find that there are
37 players under contract.
Yeah. Have you looked at it or?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Like the effective cap space is, I mean, you're talking about a middle of the pack. Like the Buccaneers, who are basically tanking this year, had the same amount of effective cap space as the Ravens. Like the cap space, that people have to back up. Okay, you being cap compliant is not an edge, right? Having this, like every team has cap space next year except for the Saints, right? Like it's not there. This isn't like and to your point, Petro, like it's going to be Lamar's. Some QB is in that group, right? Of cap space, and it's going to take a significant amount of that money. So I mean, look, like I don't hate the void years thing for some players and some teams, but you're overpaying Odell. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He got the best contract of any wide receiver in this class by $7 million per year. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. But no Devin Duvernay, no J.K. Dobbins. There's a lot of work to be done when you see that cap number. So I mean, I get the point, but it's not 100% valid. There's more to it than that. They don't have a team, right, with that amount. Like they don't have a quarterback. That's a big problem. So there's more that has to be done. And yes, the cap can be massaged and all that, but they have to get their quarterback position figured out. Right now they're over a barrel. Do we think, last thing on Lamar, Jeff, do we think this clears up after the draft? Like, is that what everyone's waiting for? We get past the draft, then the Ravens are looking at if somebody's going to sign him, and nobody is. We all agree on that. The picks are in the future, and it gets easier for somebody to price it. Could we see him move after the draft when somebody's trading away the 24 picks?
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, there will be more interest in talking about doing a deal, but ultimately, again, I think the Ravens look at it like, if it's a reasonable deal, we can match it, and if it's unreasonable, we'll let him go. I don't think anybody's going to get to the place where it's unreasonable.
Well, but if it's a reasonable deal, he won't sign it.
What do you mean, with them?
With anybody? Like, what deal that the Ravens would match would he sign?
Oh, well, then that comes back to, okay, we get into July and we're doing the stance. Okay, I'll just take the franchise tag. He's taking the money. I guarantee you Lamar Jackson is going to take some money some way, somehow. Yeah. It's just a matter of how he gets it.
But Petro, that question ignores kind of like what we've even seen in Kansas City, right? Where like McCole Hardman took less money from the Jets. Juan Thornhill took less money from the Browns. Like all that stuff. Like if your original team disrespects you, you'll still go and I do think that if a team came with less than what Lamar asked for initially from the Ravens, he would still take it in many ways, and maybe the Ravens would then match it. But I do think that a dynamic is in place to where if he doesn't get exactly what he wants, he still might take it from another team before he would take it from Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's where he's painted himself into such a corner with wanting the guaranteed money. He can't do the Tyreek Hill thing and have some superfluous years on the back end of a deal that make it this highest average and say, see, I won. I got the highest average, because he's made it all about guaranteed money, which makes it really easy for everybody to grade the scorecard. And I think that's where pride is maybe getting in the way of doing what would be the best thing for his financial future. And it's going to
and not to cut you off. Yeah. When people go get Aaron Rodgers, they're talking about winning a championship. When they go get Lamar Jackson, they're talking about getting a great player. Like, that's what we're talking about here. So if you're getting a championship with him, it's a different conversation we're having about him.
Yeah. We're brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area, including the entire metro, and of course, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems are no problem with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They've been making them disappear since 1994. Every project comes with a written warranty, free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews. Gann Asphalt and Concrete can make your parking lot problems disappear, make your business life better. Go Go to GanAsphalt.com for more information. Let's talk about the Lions. I don't know whose Lions to call them because Jeff grew up with them. And Eric, you certainly have done everything you can to steal them away. Hendon Hooker visiting means what for the Detroit Lions?
Eric, you want to start with this?
Hendon Hooker, I don't think moves the needle for the Lions.
Okay. So what is?
So why is he visiting?
Yeah, why is he there?
I think he's there so that team, like the Cardinals, don't try to rip their eyes out in a trade.
For what?
The third pick.
So you think the Lions want to get to 3?
I think the Lions are considering getting the 3 to get Anthony Richardson. Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
I think messing around with Hendon Hooker is literally just saying to, like we haven't even talked about draft scenarios, but like let's say it goes Young, right, which is the favorite right now in the markets, and Houston goes all Mario Williams on us and takes Tyree Wilson, right, and then the pick 3. Now Arizona's like, damn, no one wants, either Arizona's like, damn, Indianapolis after us has similar like leverage with this pick. So we are, it could go either way, right? But like Arizona's got some, I think outs here. And I think Detroit is just trying to maybe throw a little shade at it. Like that, because I think 3 is legitimately a trade-up spot. Obviously, Tennessee, Vegas, and Detroit are all, to me, teams that could do that.
Indianapolis send them off as a possibility to move in there.
Say that again.
Indianapolis to move up and keep the others from getting in front of them.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a real chance, that the Detroit Lions are saying, hey, Arizona, we have another option in case you don't play ball with us for number 3. That's I think what they're doing.
Okay, Jeff, how do you see the move?
I'm not going as far as he's going with it, but I do believe that I think the interest is sincere. And I think they look at it like they've got 5 picks in the first, 81 picks. They've got some luxury in there to make some moves like this. Brad Holmes, the general manager, has talked about, like they've showered praise on Jared Goff for the job he did this past year, which was justified. But Brad Holmes also has said that he is not adverse to drafting a quarterback, sitting on him for a couple of years and seeing what happens. They traded Matthew Stafford when he showed up and got the job. So, Goff's got 2 years left on his deal. He's 28, so he'll be 30 at the end of this. I think when you're drafting 6th and 18th, I just think if you're the Lions, you got to get a difference maker at number 6. And I think there are going to be a lot of difference makers there to choose from, whether that's Tyree Wilson, whether that's Will Anderson, whether that's Jalen Carter. You can do a lot to help your team right now. I don't see the value in using that number in trading up to 3 to get a quarterback you're not going to play for a couple of years. I think they sit at 18. If Hendon Hooker's around, or even if Hendon Hooker slips out of the first round, he's there in the second round, you can make some moves.
How about the fact that Goff is only under contract through 2040? Do you think the Lions extend Goff? Is that what this is going to ultimately, or no?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that after 2 years, like he's going to be walking out of there, or they'll be trying to trade him someplace.
I think 2 things happen with Goff. One thing is he plays amazingly, and then Ben Johnson's a head coach in the NFL the following year, or he plays horribly and they're replacing him. Right? Either way, Goff is not going to be the Detroit Lions quarterback in 2025 because Goff. I like Goff. I think Goff has been misunderstood, but like Goff was very good last year in large part because Ben Johnson engineered an offense that played to his strengths. And it even was the second half of 21 where they took play calling duties from Anthony Lynn that Goff played really well at the end of 2021. It translated to 2022. And if he plays amazingly again, like he fends off, much like when Alex Smith fended off Mahomes in 17, Matt Nagy got a head coaching job, right? I think that's going to happen in Detroit. And to me, like, do you really want to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna belly up to Jared Goff another year with a new offensive coordinator and like let's take that gamble? I just don't see it.
Yeah, interesting. Who should be looking to get in at number 3, Jeff? Where the Cardinals are at, and what should the Cardinals be looking for that pick?
Tennessee. I think of all the teams that we're talking about, I think they got to make a move because they're sitting in a tough spot right now. And what are they, 11? They drafted 11th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Jeff, do you see any like Rand Carthon Niners? They went from 12 to 3, probably regret it. Do you think that curbs any of Rand Carthon's?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Here.
I don't know. I know when you're a GM, a new GM, new head coach too, like you want to know who your quarterback's going to be. So this is the biggest decision you're going to make for the franchise, and you don't want to sit around waiting a whole year to go through a bad year because the clock's ticking on you, right? Yeah. So you have to figure out a way to get somebody you like in there. And right now, Rand Carthon didn't draft Malik Willis. So let's assume he's not going to be the option they go to. Yeah. And so I think that of all the teams there, we talk about the Raiders, you talk about Indy, you talk about the Lions, you talk about the Falcons, all the teams that could make a move. I think the Titans really got to get up there to get in the game because there's no way somebody they like a quarterback is going to be falling to them at 11.
Yeah. Listen, I think can the Cardinals actually be the smart ones in this, Eric? I mean, what should they get for pick number 3? What should they be looking to get where their team is right now with a guy that they're paying like a franchise quarterback who's going to be hurt? What should the plan be with number 3 here for Arizona?
When you trade back, you have no good players on your team. Like,
but how far and what are they targeting?
I mean, I think Tennessee's perfect, right? Because you're not good, and Tennessee's going to have to give up a boatload of picks, both now and in the future, to get your pick. Detroit's moving up 3 spots, and they're valuable 3 spots, but you're not going to get a ton, right? Where Vegas at 7, similarly. So Tennessee's the one I'm looking at, right? Because then you're going to get an absolute boatload of picks, and they're going to be valuable. And you look at that roster, like Budda Baker, DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows if he's going to stay around? Chances are no. And Kyler Murray injured. Like, you don't have any good players on your team.
Yeah, no, they've got issues for sure, and they need a lot of help. And a lot of places that they need to work to get better for sure. And we'll see if they actually can get better out of this trade. But they're in like such a no man's land. I think it's a difficult spot for them to figure out where to go. How about Sean Payton? Jeff, he talked about Russell Wilson, and he's they shouldn't be talking about he's done. Kept again throwing shade back at the previous regime about what happened. What's the takeaway from this?
Well, I've thought this since Sean Payton has showed up. I really believe he's going to help Russell Wilson play at a different level. Doesn't have to be the level he was at in Seattle, but certainly not where he was at last year for the Denver Broncos. I expect Russell Wilson to be a lighter player. I think he had issues with his weight. I expect him to be a more.
He wasn't going to the bathroom, according to certain reports. Remember that one?
I didn't hear that one. Hey, what's that?
There was he had fine-tuned.
How does that work?
There was this report. I don't even know this report that he had fine-tuned his diet to where it was so precise, like he didn't quote make waste, and only had certain days.
Yeah, that's made up.
Yeah, that's what I'm joking. That's one of the things that was going.
What are we doing here?
Oh yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
I know, but it was believable for like a week.
Yeah.
I was talking to people on the air about it. Everybody, it took like a week before people realized, no, it's not true.
Okay. Well, look, I totally believe everything that Sean Payton has done shows you he's going to have a physical football team, and that's going to help Russell Wilson play more like he played when he was at his best in Seattle. They got to be able to run the football, got to be able to protect him. Sean Payton made it clear they're not trading Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy, any of these guys who've had interest in them from other teams. And so, yeah, I don't think it's going to take that much to get him to be a competent quarterback again. And I think that's what Sean Payton is looking at.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, the Broncos are a playoff team in 2023, I think. Like, the defense is too good. I know they lost Chubb, but they're very good defensively, personnel-wise. They have good weapons. offensive line isn't an atrocity. They got Mike McGlinchey to play right tackle. Sean Payton's a much better coach than I think people gave him credit for, especially at the end in New Orleans. I mean, he took that. They were 9-8, and Taysom Hill's 7-2 as a starter in the NFL. Like, this is ridiculous. I think that the Broncos are going to be pretty good. Not good, like not Chiefs good, but I think that they're going to be competitive in the AFC and I think we're going to trace it back to Payton making Russell Wilson, to Jeff's point, maybe not elite the way that he was at the times in Seattle, but more than competent.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, being that I heard nothing but clicks and beeps in the last one, and somehow right as you were wrapping up, Eric, I came back on. I think I'm going to call off the jam. So that's it. That's all the damage we can do, because I have no doubt that I'm about ready to be looking at the frozen screen here very quickly. So that's going to do it for us. Remember, we are live every Tuesday when I can actually get on the internet. We are live, and with the 2 Deep via the stream, you can catch us around 9 o'clock Central Time. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2 Deep NFL Podcast.